you will not edit, but Hansberry will on the audio. You people watching our YouTube channel, and if you're watching this YouTube channel, by all means, tell your friends about it as well, because we like the fact that you can actually watch.
It doesn't matter.
Jodi Frisby is with us for our next go. Hi, Jodi.
Hello,
Thank you.
Dino.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You do two things by being here this evening. One, you share a ghost story. Two, you answer the one thing that we complained, if you would, we don't have enough women on whiskey business. So thank you for helping us fill that gap.
I'm happy to be your token.
Do you drink whiskey?
You're not my token.
Do you drink
You're not my
whiskey?
token woman.
Do you like whiskey? Do you drink whiskey?
I don't normally drink whiskey, but I think this is delicious. This like bonded old granddad.
Yeah, bonded.
Broke out the special
made.
stuff. I
Has to
love
be made
it.
in a single distillery during that particular season. It has to be federally bonded. So there's a few steps it has to go through to be bonded. But yeah, we're pretty. And for $20 a bottle, yeah, high marks.
Yeah, United States government seal of approval.
Yes, there you go.
And there's no higher.
I don't see that stamped anywhere.
No higher standard there.
And it's 100 proof, so it's got a little bit of a kick to it. But actually, for 100 proof, it's pretty smooth. It's pretty smooth. Okay, I digress. Welcome. Thank you. You work at a lovely theater/tavern called Studio 35.
I do.
A longtime theater that's been on Indianola Avenue for generations.
80 years.
80
this
years.
Year.
80 years this year, celebrating 80 years. And there has been talk about the confines of Studio 35, that not only is it, I don't want to say haunted with the memories of movies past, but because they do show some old movies from time to time. They show the classics. And so forth and so on. Geely.
Yeah, it had a nice stint in the 1970s as a porn theater.
Yeah.
So you
There
got
you go, yeah.
This is one of those.
Oh, please tell me you have a ghost story about a porn star at Studio 35.
I really think one of the ghosts is a bit of a sleazebag.
All right, so tell me, what do you got for me? Tell me your ghost story.
All right. Well, I think anyone who has been involved in the theater, performing or projection, theaters are haunted. I mean, that's almost like a truism, right? There's the ghost light that you keep on the stage at all times.
Well, I don't know what that is.
So there is, in the theater on the stage, you keep a light on all the time, 24 hours a day. I'm not sure if it's for the ghosts or to keep away the ghosts. I don't know
so that's
what
like
the
theaters and or
just
on stage
theaters.
in
Theaters
general.
in general.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, I feel like it's a truism that theaters have ghosts, and so I grew up performing in the theater, and there were always ghost stories, but me or interested me, like there's so many.
I'm sorry.
What'd you do?
I don't know, I just went down.
You did not record any of my interview.
Okay, Chip, you can do that. Go over again. Oh, it's okay.
It just stopped.
Are we still recording on this?
No.
Yeah, but it's bad audio, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, kill it. Sorry there.
There's been a pause in the audio portion of Whiskey Business because Hansberry says he dumped a bunch of stuff from earlier before,
It's a very dim light.
and then all of a sudden the audio went out. Now,
Alright, so long.
Kind of freak
the
yourself
thought process here
So let's do this.
amongst everybody chatting is that the ghost I mentioned earlier here now is Bill had something to do with it, which
See,
I
it's
think
only
is
like that, right?
I think is false, because why would Bill? This is a very social atmosphere, and according to the medium, Bill liked
That's very
the social activity in a home. So why would he fuck with my podcast? Is
He
my
hasn't done it
question.
so far, right? He
Huh?
hasn't done it so far.
No, he hasn't done it so
He's
far.
waiting
But
for
this
the
one,
ghost
and
episode.
Hansberry, who's trying to figure out
Hansberry's
things
waiting
with
for the
John
ghost
Whitney as we
episode.
speak, Hansberry is giddy with ghost delight because he thinks that a spirit has intervened and thrown a ghostly wrench into the podcast.
Well, and it might be possible too that Bill isn't. We can't understand ghost motivations, right? The ghost motivations might be different from the living motivations. Maybe he just wants to be a part of the conversation.
If he wants to be part of the conversation, then by all means, like I said just a moment ago, sit across from me and join in.
So there's nothing on this.
Which I'll be honest, if that happens, it'll freak the shit out of me. But
I can't.
What's the date today?
today is the
Ninth.
Can you set your fucking clock on that thing?
No, because every time my batteries are down, so.
It's like June 27th.
October 9th.
This is June 29th.
You're saying that he wants to be a part of the fun.
Yeah, maybe he wants to be a part of it, and he does.
And this is his way of saying, "Hey, I'm here messing with you."
Or this is a publicity stunt for the YouTube channel.
That's what you're going with when there was
Bill.
Bill.
For the record, though,
I couldn't do that again in a million
I'm
years.
just gonna give.
that was something because I dumped it all before it came.
All right.
Yeah, you're talking about
Or
God.
did you?
I like
did
the
you?
idea of giving Bill credit for
So can we mention that?
Sure.
All right. Okay. Ready? We going?
We're going.
All right. Next up on Whiskey Business, the ghost stories. Jodi Frisby joins us. Hi, Jodi. Thank you for being here. And I should
Thanks
say
for
that this
having
is
me.
probably, officially, this sounds like the first introduction, but we had one earlier. And then all of a sudden, something mysterious happened.
I love it. I love
It
every
stopped.
second of this.
Everything stopped, and Hansberry thinks that everything stopped because of Bill,
Well, I don't know.
the visiting spirit that's supposedly in my house.
I have this little recorder where we
Yeah.
record the podcast, and just today I dumped
Yeah,
everything off of
right.
it. And all of a sudden, we're halfway through the story,
Right.
and it stops, and
It
it
stops.
says card full.
Card full.
And
That's
so then I go,
spooky.
whoa, what the shit? And then we dump it off on the computer, and there's
And then what?
It's not full.
It's not full.
It's
It
not
wasn't full. So the machine said it was full, but the computer said it wasn't full.
Science.
It
Oh,
showed
so it's
full on the computer, but it still kept recording.
wasn't.
Oh no!
I don't know. I think it's
There must be some sort of
Well-
spiritual
but here's the thing.
intervention.
All right, stop.
Come on.
All right, skeptics.
No, not skeptics.
No, but they say that a lot. Like spirits use electricity, use energy to present themselves. Whether it's on visual,
Right.
visual, is that visual a word? Or EVP. That's not why people use those EVP, because they
Right.
can make themselves present. So I didn't expect this at all, but I could see something, Bill.
Something, Bill, the
Using
spirit that supposedly
the
inhabits this
main
home.
digital device here that
Why would he do that though? I
Just
said
say,
earlier.
hey,
I said earlier.
because you said that he wasn't around anymore.
I said
and
earlier in the
now-
podcast, but I also said that he likes social atmosphere. So why would he fuck up the podcast?
because he wants a fucking cocktail. I don't know.
Will someone please get Bill a drink?
Somebody get Bill a drink.
All right,
Somebody,
Bill.
maybe, and this is just a long shot, ladies and gentlemen, as far as explanations. Maybe on occasion you're just a shitty producer.
I just ran out of batteries. No, it's very possible. It's very possible. But I like to pretend.
We are, by the way, on our second bottle now of old granddad.
But
because
that was, I will say, you're right. I could fuck up, but that was really
That was a
weird.
joke.
I know.
You're
I
an
know.
excellent
I know.
producer.
But
was
that was
just-
really weird because I today made a very conscious effort to wipe this.
You think you did. Maybe you
sound card
did.
clean.
I'm telling you, my friend, you think you did. Maybe you did not. You're
Fair
a very
enough.
busy man.
Fair
You
enough.
could have forgotten it.
Fair
Maybe you
enough.
think you did it, but you didn't.
Fair enough,
And
but
now you're saying, I wiped it clean. Maybe you didn't
one
wipe it
time
clean.
where I
It's
actually
being,
tried to do
nah.
And
Yeah.
and John Whitney,
Freshen-
our YouTube producer,
Which one's Bill's?
says
This one's Bill.
This
that
one's-
there were only
Bill's?
4 files on there.
I'm actually pouring good living whiskey
You
into
know,
a glass
Why would
for a
4 files
ghost.
fill it up?
Am I doing that right now? Am I really doing it? I'm pouring a drink for a ghost?
I mean, that would make you a very good host.
And it would make it easier for John and I, so not to have this fucking nonsense edit that we have to make.
How much whiskey does a ghost need? Is that good? All right.
Yeah, save the rest for us. Yeah, save the rest for them.
Jodi Frisby is with us. Our next ghost story. She works at a local neighborhood theater called Studio 35, which has been around for how many years?
80 years.
80 years. And old theaters, be they movie theaters or stage theaters, are known for supposedly housing spirits of the day.
Right.
as it were.
It's a total truism in the theater that there is a ghost and everyone has, or multiple ghosts and everyone has a ghost story. And I grew up performing theater, and
So you're a theater performer as well?
I used to be, yes. And so knew tons of people with experiences, but I never was afraid of it or was even super interested in it, because there are so many living people that I would love to talk to and get to know that I don't need to seek out dead people. You know, if dead people want to like be friends with me, like they can find me, but like there's enough
On
living
Facebook?
people. Yeah, like
Sorry.
it's like my ghost book friends. Yeah,
Ghost book
yeah.
friends.
So
that could become a thing. Start
so
ghost book.
yeah, no, I want to be in that closed group. So yeah.
So would you, if you could communicate with dead people easily, you would welcome that?
Yeah. If they wanted to, I mean, I wouldn't, badger them or anything. But if they wanted to,
But if they wanted to chat with you?
Yeah, totally into
you have
it.
questions?
Especially, no, I think it's far more interesting to let people tell you things that they want to tell you, and just be a good listener.
Just
Again?
well,
What?
I really before Bill crashed my last audio that we introduced.
All right, Bill did not crash your last
You
audio.
did, Bill. Thanks.
didn't
But
do
anyway,
it.
you were talking about the light on stage.
I was going to get to that.
Hmm.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
You're welcome for setting it up for you. Dina.
I was going to get to the ghost light. Tell us about Greg Hansberry, producer and the son I never wanted. Tell us about the ghost light. He wants to talk about the ghost light because you were talking about the ghost light
Yes.
before we got interrupted.
Yes. So the ghost light is a thing in performance theaters where you leave a light on the stage all the time, whether it's a superstitious belief or it keeps the ghosts away, or it lets
Whatever the case might be.
Whatever the case may be, it's a thing. It's a tradition. It's been around for a while. That's in performance theaters, not projection theaters, but generally the idea is theaters are haunted. That's the way it is. Everyone has stories. It's just just a part of being in a theater.
At Studio 35, a movie theater, which has, like we said, been around for 80 years, has shown, was a first-run theater at some point. You said at one point they were
A porn theater,
a
yes,
porn
in the,
theater
in the
as
70s. Everyone who had a projection theater in the 70s had to
show a little
figure out a way to keep the lights on.
had to
Or keep the lights
yeah,
down.
pay the bills.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to pay the bills. And is there a specific ghost that supposedly haunts Studio 35?
Well, there's not just one.
How many?
That I know of specifically. There are 4 that I have
4?
first-hand, stories of. But there might be many, because something that
4 spirits that you have actually run into,
yeah.
seen, had experiences with.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. And
Let's just go right down the line
all
with
right.
them.
Well,
Number 1.
Well, yeah. Okay. Number 1. When I first started working there, the bottom floor is where the auditorium is, the bar is, and then upstairs is the projection area and some storage, and also there is what used to be an apartment. Back in the day, projectionists used to often live in the theater. Projection was a hugely high-paying job because it was super dangerous when you were working with nitrate film. When you would lock the projectionist in the projection booth whenever it was running and it was totally fire safe because in case the nitrate burned, it's better
like
to
that,
kill
Quentin Tarantino film, right?
better to kill one person than to kill a theater full. So projectionists got paid a pretty high rate, but were often a little bit antisocial. You know, they were a very specialized field. They got locked in a room.
they're all by
No one cared about
themselves,
that. You
yeah.
know, but sometimes
A
it would-
lonely existence.
Yes, and so sometimes projectionists would live in the theater because they would keep the theater running. So in our theater, there is what used to be an apartment. There's still the bathroom up there and the office, which was where the bedroom was. And so there were multiple times where I was upstairs and I can only describe this feeling of when there's a man behind you. And this is something that men just have to take my word for it, but women know this feeling. Even without seeing people around you, you know when there is a man walking behind you. You have a
Chip, who was right before you, is sitting behind you as we speak. Can you feel his presence?
Well, when there's something out of place, you can definitely feel
all right.
it. Yeah.
When you say you feel it, is it a heaviness? Is it a feeling of somebody standing too close to me and I'm uncomfortable?
Yeah, it's there's someone is behind you and they are approaching and you don't know who they are.
Okay, which
and
concern?
so
it's
that's
concerning.
Yeah. So I there were a few times where I was up in the office and I felt that there was this overwhelming unease. Like there's something I should be concerned about happening behind me, and turn around and nothing's there. And as what this is like a feeling that you get used to, but I didn't really say anything to anyone about it. And there was at least one time where there's very steep, narrow staircase going down into the auditorium, and all of the storage is up there. So often, if we need pint glasses, I'll be carrying a case of pint glasses or a case of napkins or liquor or something down the stairs. And and also as someone who had 3 brothers, I definitely know the feeling of someone that I'm not touching you, or the pushing you, from behind, but sort of not super violent, but teasing.
I'm not
right?
touching.
Yeah.
Like when you were kids,
Mhm.
and your mom says,
Yeah,
"Quit touching your sister.
Uh-huh.
I'm not touching you. I'm not
Uh-huh.
touching you." But they're as close as they can possibly be.
Right. So
And then it being annoying.
yeah, there was at least one time where I was walking down the stairs carrying a case of very heavy glassware, where I felt someone push me down the stairs. Not hard enough that I would lose my balance, but I'm here sort of feeling. And
Not a hurt you push.
right,
Not-
but
not-
I can hurt you, but not. I'm trying to kill you, but
Wow.
I want
All
you to
right.
know I'm here. So,
Okay.
but I didn't. Not that I didn't think anything of it, but I was sort of
Was it like you felt pressure?
yeah, on my shoulders, yeah. And so I didn't really talk about it because, as anyone who has this sort of ghost story, it sounds a little crazy to people. So it's like, well, that happened.
You think it's crazy because there was no witness, there was nobody to substantiate it?
Right.
You think that's why it falls into the crazy mode?
Well, there's that, and then there's the skepticism about
Right.
the idea of.
And do people in general, do they think that you're kind of crazy? So if you came up with a story like that, this is Jodi, she's fucking nuts.
Yeah, I think at the time
Or do
I was a
people
little
think-
bit. I was a little bit paranoid about that. I was a little insecure that
Right.
people are just going to think I'm nuts. I'm not
I'm
going to
crazy.
talk about
They're-
this.
Okay.
When
Yeah.
was it? When was
Yes.
this?
You're fear. You become fearful of the ridicule.
Right.
Okay. all
Right.
fair
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. And so this was.
Fair
I'd
enough.
been there about 6 months at that point.
But 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 6 months ago.
This was, let's see, about 4 years ago, maybe. I'd been there about 6 months to a year, and this happened, but I didn't talk about it.
Right. Okay,
And then,
I get it.
And then one night, but everyone, while I'd been working there would be little technical things that would go wrong. Something wouldn't work. They would blame the ghost. And then one night I was working, and there on a point of sale system, there's different buttons to denote certain things. And at the end of the night, I ran a report, and there was a line item for something that there wasn't a button for. So I asked the manager, hey, I know there wasn't a button for this. And we went to the screen and there was. And he was like, yeah, I didn't ring any of that up all night. I didn't ring any of that up all night. And he's like, yep, the ghost. And I was like, whoa, okay, all right. So this is like a.
So
this is
So now you're validated.
This is a thing. Yeah. Okay.
Everybody else
All
knows
right.
about the ghost.
All right.
I'm
Yeah.
not crazy.
I'm not nuts. I'm not nuts. And so on top of that, the first my account of the things that happened to me are hostile, but now I have this new thing that's sort of like innocuous. It's an innocuous ghost story.
Playful.
So yeah, but not violent. So then I just started telling this story. This was like my in. I would tell everyone I had this experience, and then that gave people the feeling that I can be trusted. That
I gotcha.
That okay, well maybe Jodi is receptive and will believe me this story. And as I started talking about that first story, and I could tell, like, people would react certain ways, and I would say, oh, did you ever have an experience with a ghost? And I found lots, and I heard lots of other stories, but one common thing was every single woman who worked there had the exact same experience that I had upstairs. The pushing, the feeling, and used the exact same words to describe their experience. And
so does anybody know anything? So did you all come to any conclusions as to who the spirit might be? Would it be an old projectionist?
It wasn't a discussion, but it got me thinking, because at the time I started thinking about, well, what could this mean, and what does it mean to try and interact with someone who you don't share a common language with, who can't communicate with you
only by pushing.
In the way
you know
how to communicate. So I used it as this exercise in empathy, where so maybe this is his way of communicating, that he has no other way of communicating. So what is, like, if I can be in a position of imagining good faith, like, this was an aggressive action, but how can I understand?
So you're cutting the ghost a break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then I started thinking about what does that mean, or what could it mean to feel like you have no other way of communicating with a person.
Did you feel sorry
violence.
for the ghost?
And I think I didn't.
When you mentioned
that was
empathy.
Yeah, I didn't feel sorry for the ghost, and I think that was key, because it was never pity. It wasn't like, oh, you have no way to communicate me by actually, pushing hard on my shoulders and making me fall down the steps. Right. And so I just started thinking about the way that everyone in the theater talked about this ghost in particular. This ghost got blamed for a lot of technical issues, a lot. And there were always technical things going wrong.
Once again, and I don't mean,
Oh,
I'm going to be the other side of it. It's an old building. The theater's been there for 80 years.
Right.
I know that they've had
exactly.
building updates and electrical updates and so forth and so on.
Sure.
But, you can't blame everything
I know.
on the ghost.
I know, and that's where I landed, and I thought, how unfair is that we blame this spirit when how many times, like, maybe what if, like, we expand our mind to think, like, maybe this guy has, like, helped sometimes,
maybe he has,
and we don't know because everything went fine, and then shit goes wrong. Exactly.
If I was a ghost and people blame me for everything, I'd be a little pissed off.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I
tried to push her down the steps, but I didn't fuck up the screening of the Star Wars.
Right. Yeah, and I thought, and that's what I landed, and I said that this was profoundly unfair. And so it got me in that mind space of thinking, like, what does it mean for you to not be able to communicate, not be understood, and always be blamed and not be able to counter it? And so I decided that I was like, well, I'm going to change this narrative, okay? So, I told everyone at work my stories about the ghost and about about ghosts and empathy, and the idea that maybe ghosts could be helpful, and
like Casper.
or
Casper
just,
the Friendly Ghost.
Yeah, maybe not, or just maybe they're just like around and innocuous, and maybe don't blame them for everything. And so and that was in the autumn, so as it was getting close to Halloween, there's often ghost hunter type people that want to come through the theater. And so I had then, sort of pounded in my, agenda to enough people that worked there that when one time we were working and some ghost hunter called and the manager answered, and his side of the conversation was, yeah, that's fine if you come here, but don't be rude. You have to be respectful. We have to work with these people. And I was like, boom. That's
we have to
great.
work with these people.
We have to work with these people. The ghosts. The ghosts. Yeah. So now it's turned into.
So now the ghosts are people.
Well, now it's like, well, don't be rude. And really, I think that's a good point. Is like oftentimes like ghost hunting starts from a place of disrespect that we don't. You don't get a voice and we don't believe you're real, but you have to defend your existence to us. And that's the only time we will even recognize you, but not even give you any sort of validity.
So you believe in ghosts?
I don't know if I think belief is the wrong word.
What's the word then?
I accept the possibility that there's ghosts because I think
you accept what I said earlier. You accept the fact that there's energy out there of some sort that
and maybe
manifests itself.
Right. Because I think that's like a super good and healthy way to look at it. Because what are we afraid of by admitting that there might be ghosts? Like we're afraid of being embarrassed or shame. That we're going to be wrong? Like, how do we know if we're wrong?
I mean, you stated earlier that you were reluctant to say anything because you don't want anybody to think that you were nuts or crazy. So, yeah, maybe there is something to that fear of being ridiculed or being, called out and something.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And if me saying that I believe in ghosts means that people who have had even more intimate experiences than I have, where they've seen ghosts or had firsthand experiences with ghosts, if that means that that they can tell me these experiences and feel heard and feel believed, if that's what it takes, then yes.
Let me ask you something. I'm going to share something with you because one of the people that I tried to get, my next door neighbors, my neighbor, the wife of my neighbor, her brother, who does not live in Columbus, Ohio. If I could have gotten him on tonight, I would have, because he claims to have been visited by a spirit on a regular basis who wore him out sexually every night for an extended period of time.
That's the best kind of ghost.
Yeah, a succubus. Yes, yes.
Thanks, Chip
But it
knows
was-
the goddamn name. Thanks, Chip.
But it was a positive experience or a negative experience?
Positive.
For her, it was negative.
Positive. I would think that if he didn't call the next day, there were no ramifications. I don't know, but once again, he firmly believed. I mean, he would wake up in the morning, firmly. Yes, no pun intended. Firmly believed that he would wake up in the morning, physically, sexually exhausted. I hope to get him on sometime to discuss that. So do you?
So yes. If I can say,
I mean, that's a whole special, different
that's
kind
a whole,
of
That's a whole
energy.
different thing. But if I can say, if I can make it known that I will listen to people's stories and, believe them and validate them, then sure, that's helpful. And as it turns out, there's with this particular, and then that became, I made this effort to sort of like understand this ghost, I sort of changed the narrative the way people were talking about the ghost. I would, if we had a really good night and everything went well, I would say thank you because, you know, if I said thank you to no one,
Right.
like what am I going to be embarrassed? No, but what if he helped and
They're part of the team.
Right.
yeah, yeah, and so you know, after then, by the way, no one had any experience like this.
None.
Like no, there was no weird technical stuff, no weird projection issues.
Everything settled down.
Yeah, everything settled down. And so, you know, I've been ringing this bell for, you know, as long as I've worked there. It's been, you know, 2 or 3 years, and anytime people want to hear these stories, I tell them, you know. And so I was doing this again where
Right.
Eric, the owner, asked me to tell the story to someone. And I was telling the story, and
This particular story.
this,
the
you
one just
know,
told
you know
us.
about, you know,
Yeah.
the greater my parable about empathy, that where ghosts are the subject, and so I told my story, went home, came back to work maybe on a Saturday night, and someone who works there sometimes was there, stayed until closing, and drank, and then waited until, you know, my other coworker was somewhere else and was like, to tell me something that he had heard what this story that I told, and then he saw someone who was the recipient of the story, their response later, which was discrediting me, saying I don't believe in that, whatever. This was after I left, and the person was telling me, he was like, well, when we first purchased the theater, you know, it was about 2 years afterwards, we used to do closing procedures differently, where there was only one person closing, and we used to turn the lights off downstairs, then go upstairs and turn off all the projection equipment. And he said that he turned a corner, and it was, he's like, I saw him. And I was like, you saw the ghost?
The one you speak of. Mm-hmm. When you spoke of the
Yeah,
one you told the story
yeah.
about.
And he was like, it was like a movie, like all white. I was like, was it the form of a man? Was it, was it, you know, did it look like a man? And he said, no, it was all white. And I was like, how did you know it was a man? He's like, I just knew. He's like, and I ran out of there and ran outside. And he was like, it was absolutely not friendly. And what triggered that response in him is as I was, you know, relaying this story, I said, you know, ghosts are our friends. And so he was responding to that. This ghost was not friendly, but I think I wanted to think about, what does that mean that, you know, I didn't say that this ghost was friendly. I said that this ghost was my friend.
Different.
And right, because, you know, I certainly have friends that aren't friendly, that I have conflict with, that we work out and we resolve and we try to communicate, but that being a friend is different from being friendly.
Gotcha.
And I think it's whether or not this ghost exists or ghosts exist, I think it's a really good lesson to think about, what does it mean that we're going to treat people or dead people like a friend, from understanding, from good faith, from validating their experiences in existence, and what does it do us? What does it do? Does it embarrass us to give people the benefit of the doubt? And that's, you know, and that's just the one.
That's just the one.
That's just the one ghost. Yeah,
You mentioned 3 others, which we don't have time to get into the 4 ghosts, because we have another guest coming up. But I will ask you one last question before we move on. Given the fact that you are empathetic, all right, and have this understanding and are very receptive to whatever's out there, if the occasion came up, would you have sex with a ghost? I
I don't think it's a good idea to give blanket consent to an entire group that is
For
universal.
the ghosts that are listening, because there's ghosts. If we believe this, there are ghosts that are listening going, go on. Yeah.
So one thing that I have learned from my experiences with all of these ghosts,
Because based on what I
is-
told you earlier about my neighbor and her brother, he had no choice in the matter.
right, is that's what because even though they are my friends, I think a lot of ghosts have boundary issues. And so I wouldn't
Even as a
offer a
ghost?
blanket, because they're trying to get, like Bill with the sound equipment, they're trying to be like my ghost friend pushed me down the stairs. They're trying to be understood in any way they have.
In fairness, he didn't push you. He he nudged you.
nudged
You didn't fall down the steps.
No. He didn't push me down the stairs.
right.
He
He meant you no harm.
Let me rephrase the question because I like.
How do
where-
you rephrase would you have sex with a ghost? Go ahead. Shoot.
Well,
go for it. Go ahead. If you want to rephrase that question,
I
go
like
for
where
it.
you're going with this because you are empathetic to spirits at your place of employment. Do you feel like maybe in other encounters, like here where Bill may be, or other places,
Bill is not
other
here
spirits?
tonight.
Well, other spirits may.
All
Seek you out or feel comfortable to seek your acquaintance because you have that empathy.
Yeah, and I'm gonna give ghosts the benefit of the doubt that when they are
And
when they
also the sex
find
thing.
when they're able to find someone who understands them and validates them, their first desire isn't a desire of the flesh, but of the spirit.
Of the spirit. That's a lovely.
asked me that question.
That's a, no, I did not ask you that question, Chip. And that is a perfect and lovely way to end it. Jodi, thank you so much. That's pretty fascinating stuff, and also I think some beautiful thoughts on how to handle that world that some believe in and some don't, but if they happen to encounter it, maybe a little bit of empathy is a good way to go.
Also, at Studio 35, do you guys do ghost tours, or you just are there and you come and do your thing?
Yeah, every once in a while ghost tours come through, and often I'm the one scheduled because I'm the one with all the stories.
Well,
and actually,
well, you should be.
And by
You
the way,
should be.
also,
You're-
if you ever have time for another story, I have one where they photographed. We got a picture of the man who died in the auditorium.
The man who died in the auditorium.
This was the projection. The guy who I think is the projectionist is upstairs. This is a guy who died in the auditorium, and multiple people have seen. But I think he showed himself in a photograph, which was actually pretty cool.
Have you seen the photograph?
Yeah.
And do you believe it?
I didn't even know. Yes, because
Yes, you
I
did.
was,
You did.
I was,
All right,
yeah,
cool.
I was there when the photograph was taken, and
Save it for another podcast because we got a lot of good stuff.
Halloween 2019!
Out
Yeah!
of Jodi
Can't
Frisby.
wait!
Thank you. That was awesome. That was terrific.